In some instances, it can be useful to run our back-end services on the same server as our front-end display. For a small website, this can be a useful use of resources. So far we've been starting our Node server at the local port 3000. We've also been running our Angular using the ng-serve option, which spins up its own convenience server at local port post 4200. This is the convenience that each time we update our Angular app, the server restarts. When we're ready to move on to from this local development environment, we can build our app using the ng-build command and move our code to a remote testing server for further evaluation. Any changes made to the Angular code will now require a rebuild for them to take effect, as we're not using the serve which does that automatically for us. The build process creates a directory called dist, D-I-S-T for distribution. In this you will find the application's index.html file and other assets required to run your application. So now that we have this static file in a known location to target as the root level of our website, we can look at our Node server to point to this static file. So looking at this directory structure and some code. So in this example, I have a Node server which was created in a directory called server, which is at the root level of the Angular application code. My Node app and my Angular app are being run as two separate applications with their own package.json file and their own Node module directories. This does not have to be the case. So looking at the code over here in line 8, you see in this code that this is where we will link our Node server to our Angular application. So to serve static files such as images, CSS files, JavaScript files, and in this case the index.html file, we'll use the express.static built-in middleware function. I've included an extra Node module to assist in building of the path string that will ensure appropriate delimiters based on the platform that might be hosting the application. So this is part of Node, so where we add in require path here. This is part of Node, so we don't need to do any extra npm installs to make this available to the app. In our use of the express.static method, it takes one parameter. It can take more, but in this case we're only just using one parameter, which defines the path to the root of the site that we are wanting to link to. So we're using path.join here, which came from our path module, to be able to create a string that is going to give us the directory for where we will find the static files that we want to link to. So the _dir variable that's here, so that's the directory name. It's a built-in variable, which is a directory name that has the directory that the current module is running in. So Express then checks routes in the order in which they're declared in our files. So since index.html is a default file name, which is used by the static middleware, it will show the index.html file content by default for our app. So we don't have to define the index.html. As with all other web servers, index.html is the default file. So as long as we call that directory, it will call, if available, an index.html, and that will be run as the default file for our application. So that way we've been able to run our Node server. Any other existing routes within our Node server will still be available and will for use by our Angular application. But in this case, when we start up on localhost 3000, it will also then be calling this index file from the distribution directory, and we'll fire that one off, which is then the front end of our Angular application.